How important is it to remain a virgin until you get married?
It's knocking from day one. In fact, I see parents who say, oh, my child is smoking marijuana here. I'm sending him back to Africa so that they can toughen him. And I'm like, and I said, the population of the LGBT community in Nigeria may actually be more than those in the United Kingdom. There are websites where these guys have built a website for themselves where you can actually pick someone and then the person will come and meet you and stuff like that.
Where?
In Nigeria.
And kids have access to that website?
Yeah. But I mean, there was a concept called Fokarama, which happened in a lot of schools, way back. Fokarama is like, you need to differentiate a Christian school from a Christian named school. Nigerian porn industry has grown to a level that they are actually competing. We don't know which one is bigger between Nigerian porn industry and American porn industry at the moment. In fact, the largest consumers of Nigerian porn are young people between the ages of 12 and 24. Yes. I mean, it's like you give a child a phone, it's like giving a child the key to your car and now hiring prayer warriors to say, may there not be accident, an accident will occur. We are in desperate times and desperate measures as God, or else.
See how I'm looking at you. See how I'm looking at you. My guest today is a family life strategist or scientist or pioneer. What he does is that he helps families to build healthy systems for marriages and for raising healthy kids. I couldn't have said it better. You don't want to miss this one, especially in the world in which we live today where, just raising kids seems to be more than a science. It's just, in fact, it seems to be more than rocket science. On this one, I speak to Praise Fowowe. And before we go on, I'd just like to ask you for two favors now that I now ask you every week. Please subscribe to this channel. The bigger the subscribers or the more the subscriber count, the bigger guests we're able to attract. And also, please make sure you share this video with somebody else to that same end so that we can grow our subscriber base. And I'd also like to say thank you to the supporters of this show, our partners, Lightforth. Lightforth is the solution for everybody who is in the job market. Either you're looking for a new job or you're looking to change jobs. Lightforth helps you to get the best jobs that are suited to your skills while also making sure that your CV and your resume is adapted to every single job so that you're not using the same resume to apply for all the jobs out there. As I've been told, as we've learned, that will never work. So thank you very much, Lightforth. All right then, let's get into the show. This is the Teju Babyface podcast. So first of all, let's get on record that you have been one of my most punctual guests to this show. We said 10 and you were here. When were you here? Because I only knew you were here when I saw your message at 5 minutes to 10.
Got it 20 minutes to 10.
20 minutes to 10?
Yeah.
Akilode?
Because we have a policy of arriving 30 minutes before every event. It's a policy.
So that's I kind of suspected that you might do that. Mm-hmm. So, we're always also ready. Mm. But in your own case, which is why I was checking my phone. Ordinarily, I would have put my phone on, do not disturb. But I kind of knew that you would get here early and let me know.
Yeah. It's better. They're waiting for you than for you. It's better you are waiting for them than for them to be waiting for you. But, that was something my father taught me. My father, when I was younger, he would say that it's pride for them to be waiting for you. It's humility for you to be waiting for them. So okay. It was a childhood learning, which has become a policy in my organization.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. I know some people who use it as a power strategy. They will always make you wait for them. Mm. No matter how it pans out, you must be waiting for them. I guess the thinking is that when you think of government protocols, it is the most senior person in the government who arrives last. That being the president. Yeah. So they'd make everybody wait for them.
And I think it's bad behavior. I've seen it. I've organized events and people came late, and then for whatever excuse, I think it's bad behavior. It's lack of respect for the people that you're going to talk to or the people that are waiting for you. Whatever it is. For example, today I've had to cancel 2 coaching appointments to make this meeting. And so whatever is a priority for you, always find a way to get it on time.
Then Àwọn àgbàbọ̀, the people of Ajawa, they say that in Timbanduni, in Nimon Poloro Eni, what is a priority for you, you will give priority, or what is important to you, you will give priority. It's like when you're dating somebody back in the days and then she doesn't call you, and then you call her, he doesn't call you, and then he or she says, I've been busy. That's never true. You are never too busy.
Absolutely.
To call those whom you care about, right?
True.
True. All right. So, Mr. Praise Fowowe, family science strategist. Because I know all your titles based on business we've done together. Yes. So I know all those titles. So let me first of all say, that's why I saw an interview that you did recently, and you'll be doing a couple. And the effect that it had on me, as I was watching that interview, was that I was a bad parent. I was a bad parent. I didn't think so before. Is this the effect that you usually have on people after they watch you?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they say. The goal is not even to make them feel bad. The goal is to help them improve, because, I mean, I deal with families all the time and I see traumatized children. And when you go back, you realize that is a parenting, issue that they had. And so the goal has always been, okay, let's help parents improve, especially African parents. But then I get this feelers all the time to say, hey, it looks like I've not been doing anything, but you've been doing a whole lot. And I think you need to, give yourself some accolade for a good job you've done, but it can always get better.
Okay, so talking about how do you feel when you speak, all those things you speak about, how would you rate yourself on the scale of 1 to 10? I
mean, my son had a case and he had to see a therapist. And then the therapist asked him a question to rate my closeness with him and the things we were able to discuss on the scale of 0 to 100. And my son rated me 100. Right. And so the therapist couldn't believe. So she called me and was like, your son rated you 100. How were you able to do that? And I said, well, I mean, maybe he has exaggerated, but I'm sure my son is not trying to make me look good because my son is also very independent minded.
How old is he?
He's 16 now.
Okay.
Right. I just try to do my best and I create an environment where they can correct me and give me feedback consistently on what I'm not doing right, and then when I improve, they are able to tell me. So everything I teach, I do, right? Everything, because I mean, my mentor always says that make your life your teaching. Of course, I'm not a perfect parent. I mean, sometimes I look at myself, I catch myself, but when I catch myself, I'm able to self-adjust and self-regulate almost immediately.
Okay, speaking of catching yourself, look, that's the one that I struggle with. I can be given to, I can be volatile sometimes, right? And living in America as a parent does not help. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
There's a lot of pressure on you, and I don't always catch myself in time. So, I mean, again, out of 10 chances,
yes.
Because I mean, nobody's perfect. I say out of 10 chances, before I lose my temper with my children, how many times must I not be losing my temper out of 10? Because I'm never going to be 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Easiest way to do that. I mean, there are a couple of things that, especially if you live in America. So I always tell people that sometimes when we go to work, we switch to work mode, masculine mode. When we get back home, we don't intentionally switch back to the father or mother or couple mode, right? And so I always say to people, you need to center yourself when you get to your house. Don't go to the kitchen or go do some work. Get into your bedroom, wrap your arms around yourself and welcome yourself back home and address your soul to say, you know what, you're out of work. You are now back home where love is. Now that simple routine, we do a whole lot of magic for you. Now, number 2 thing I always tell people to do and why it's as if they get upset all the time. They have not created, there's something we call perceptual code. Perceptual code is a descriptive word that governs how you see everyone in your family. So if you say every child in Oyelakin's family is dash, what is that dash? If you say that dash is royalty, then your self-regulation becomes regardless of what your child has done. Who you see, what you see is a royalty. So how do you correct a royalty? How do you address a royalty? How do you, engage royalty? Because every misbehavior in a child, is either a non-remembrance of self or a non-discovery of self or a non-remembrance of self. So I always tell parents that your child is dealing with his identity crisis. Your job is to continue to remind him. So if your self-regulation technique is whatever your child has done, if your first question must be to your child is, who are you? Right? So if your child says royalty, I'm a royalty. Say, okay, do royalties do this? So why did you do this? So it's a conversation. It's not getting angry because your tantrums does not resolve the issue, right? It only strikes fear into the child, right? And it widens the gap between you and your child if care is not taken, especially the children who grow in America, right? And so if you get into that conversational mode where what you're doing, you're renting a space in their mind, because you see, you're raising Generation Z and Generation Alpha. I think there's better now from this year. Now, one of the things about them is that any change that is not self-initiated will not be self-sustained. So if it's not being initiated from within by them, they're not likely going to sustain it. So you want to ensure that the conversation is geared towards them owning it. And once they own it, you will see how easy they will promote it, but it starts with the perceptual code on what you see.
Okay, wait, let's go back to something you said. When you leave work, switch back to father mode,
yes,
husband mode, home mode. Okay, Shebi, that is for people who go to work. In these days of virtual work, are you saying every time that the man steps out of his office in the house, he should switch? I mean, that would be a lot of switching because people work from home now.
Yes, I work pretty much from home as well, right? And so if you work from home, right, I'm sure you have a period that you work from home, and sometimes when you want to go check on your children, again, what helps you mitigate against losing yourself is the perceptual code to say, okay, every time you step out of your maybe study to go see your children, you are looking at them regardless of what they're doing. Okay, I'm seeing my royalties. And even if you don't like I always say to parents that when they say, oh, parents, I can't, I get angry and I say the things I don't mean to say. And I say to them, okay, it's because you look at your child and you feel, I can undo this one, I can bully this one, because naturally as a people, we differ and we're humble with people that are above us, then we try to bully the people below us. So I always say that. So imagine I usually give the Lekki Aja axis. You're driving from Lekki in Lagos to Ekpe, and then someone bashes your car from behind at 2 a.m. midnight. You're going to get angry, get upset, and you're going to come out to give a piece of your mind. And then you step out and he happens to be the chief of army staff, Nigerian government, right? What are you going to do? You realize that you can actually self-regulate, because all your anger will now become, you can see all the soldiers and, you're literally going to self-regulate yourself almost immediately, because you're not going to get angry and lash out the way you would have done. So it means that what you see in front of you and how you define what you see in front of you is actually what defines your response. The same way, when you look at your child, what do you see? It's a big, big issue with a lot of parents. So what they see is what determines their response and how they engage.
I like that. I like that. Let me just repeat what you've said. I like that. Moti, I like you. So that when you, no matter how annoyed you are when somebody bashes your car, you'd have put back in the days when we used to use gear. Even now that we use automatic, you would have put in automatic and say, this person is mad. And then you come down and you see, you see the chief of army staff. No matter how mad you were, you regulate.
Yes.
So that's because of the way you see them.
Yes.
So you need to put in your brain.
Yes.
How you see your children as this is royalty.
Yes.
They're not going to be kids forever.
Yes.
Yes. Someday they're going to get to where I am.
Yes.
And the prayer of all parents is that our kids pass us.
Yes.
So I need to see them for their potential and who they're going to be.
Absolutely. And you know that our parents don't, oftentimes we don't grow with the developmental milestones in the child. Right. And so a lot of our children are grown. I have a 16-year-old. A lot of parents still see that little child. So they can't stand the fact that a 16-year-old is going to disagree with you, argue with you, say that he's not going to do something. Right. So we're not mentally prepared for that, because you are wondering, I'm providing the housing, I'm providing food, and then you are telling me you're not going to do something. So because we're not emotionally prepared and psychologically prepared for the milestones in their life, we just, like Yoba would say, adase rough, and then we begin to threaten. But when you understand that, okay, there's an expected behavior from age 0 to 3, from 4 to 6, from 7 to 9, from 10 to 12, from 13 to 18, thereabout, and your roles changes at every milestone, right? And so if you deploy being an instructor where you should be a model, you're going to run trouble. If you deploy model where you're supposed to be a friend, it's going to run trouble. If you define friendship where you're supposed to be a coach, you run into trouble. So when we understand, it's like characterization. That's what parenting is, right? You can act as a pastor in one movie. By the time you get to another movie, you may be a prostitute or something like that, right? So you need to know the role requirement for each of the milestones. And when you understand that, it helps you. It becomes tough when you now have different children in different milestones. It become problematic because you are a coach to one, you are a friend to one, you are a model to one, you are an instructor to one, and you are like, hey, that's why we say parenting is a full-time job.
Okay, so but wait, I've heard it said that you're not supposed to be your children's friend.
Yes.
You're supposed to be their parent. I've heard you say friend now twice during this conversation. I mean, is there a point where you're supposed to be their friend?
Yes. I mean, you're supposed to be, friendship is part of parenting. The school of thought that says that you're not supposed to be your parent, your children's friends. I don't know what they're talking about, because the moment your child, doesn't see a friend in you, because children confide in their friends, they don't confide in adults. You have to be that friend, or else they'll talk to outsiders, and the outsiders are not going to give the right information, right? So yes, you have to draw the boundary. They have to know that. I mean, I think that people are afraid that when you're a friend to your child, they're going to cross the boundary and disrespect you. I don't see it that way, right? It depends on how you've, presented yourself. But friendship is part of parenting, and I think you should be your child's friend.
Okay, so you recounted, or you listed rather.
Yes.
You listed, you presented several age brackets and different roles that the parents are supposed to play. So I wonder, our people, the Omoluabis, the people of Ajawa, they say that children are like they're like fish. When you catch fish from inside the water, it's still wet. It's fresh. You can contort and bend the fish into any shape that you want. But the longer the fish stays out of water, the harder it becomes, up until it becomes dry fish, whereupon you cannot bend it, or otherwise you will risk breaking it. And they use that analogy to say that, look, you can only, influence your children while they're young. The older they grow, the more difficult it becomes, up until it now gets to a point where you cannot even try to shape them anymore. Otherwise, you break them, according to the analogy. All of this is to ask the question, at what age is it too late to influence your kids? Let's say somebody's watching this and they figure they've been a bad parent.
It's never too late. There are protocols and there are processes to,
because they train up your child in the way you should go. Train up. So at what point is up over?
I mean, not personally, generally, an adult who starts at 18, globally, if you look at the global indices, and, some it's like 16. But what we say is that parenting is an 18-year curriculum. What happens from age 19 is your report card, right? But it doesn't mean that your report card, if it's bad, you can't still redress it. It's how you now go about it. So because at 18 and 19, you can't impose, right? You will have to bypass conscious resistance. And we've designed a lot of strategy for people, wherein the first thing you have to do at that stage is to first go and apologize, right? And say, or maybe even engage them to say, okay, if you have to rate my parenting with you, how would you rate me? And if your rating is very low, don't argue. I'm so sorry. I did the best I could with what I knew, right? But I'm learning something new right now. I hope you don't mind if I still have a space in your life. So it's theirs to give you that entry space.
I just saw my father when you said that. Just imagine me going to meet Prince and trying to judge his report card.
Of course, our parents. My dad was like that. You couldn't even talk to him. So it's you need to have that conversation, and your children are going to know that, you did the best you could. Take, for instance, the way we discipline our children. Some of us, it's almost like abusive, but, and that's what I tell a lot of the African kids out here, that no matter how wicked you think your parents are, they still love you more than the person out there. They will do it their way. It could be wrong the way they're going about it, but if you look at the spirit is not wrong. The spirit is to make you better. And so if you understand that, and knowing fully well that they're coming from a background where what was handed over to them is what they're trying to hand over to you, right? Then you can cut them some slack and now realize that your parents mean well for you. But then now we teach parents to say, you can make it better. And so it's never too late. You can influence a 25-year-old, you can influence, but it's tougher, when the child has grown older. It's easier when you're able to run the script from the time they're a bit later. But then it also depends on the environment you have created. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned kids in America now.
Yeah.
There's something that all of us have taken for granted in Africa, especially in Nigeria. We've taken it for granted. We keep complaining about how these white people, these Oyibo people, these Americans, these Britons, these Canadians, whoever is in the West, how they don't know how to raise children. They just raise spoiled children. I mean, see this one telling his mother, are you silly? Because say, mom, don't be stupid. And the African nurse says, Amy, don't. And then you almost beat the child into a coma. So we think we're better parents, right? The way we raise our kids, they are respectful. However, it's always a source of amusement to me that the spoiled kids that we say they are raising in this part of the world are the ones who are producing the cutting edge technology and all the leadership in the world, while we are there struggling with our maladies that have not left us for forever. Our corruption, our endemic corruption, our lawlessness, and all the children that we believe we raise properly. So what's going on here? Because when you look at it on the surface, these people seem to be spoiled. Really.
They're not spoiled. We don't understand. There are three words we use carelessly that we don't understand the meaning: domestication, discipline, and punishment. Now, the word discipline is the Latin word disciplina. It means to grow, to raise, to help, to develop, to coach, and to disciple. Now, so let me pick on the word discipleship. I mean, you're a Christian. When somebody gets born again, that's what we say. We disciple the person. 3 months into being discipled, if the person, you catch the person smoking or is fornicating or doing, do you catch koboko? You carry koboko and you go and beat him. That's not what you do. You bring him back again and you explain things to him again and say, you know what, this is expected. That's what we do in discipleship. Is that what we do in parenting? No. Now, the second word is the word domestication. Domestication is the Latin word domesticatus, which means to tame, to clip wings, right? And so a lot of our parents, what they call discipline is actually domestication, because domestication makes you lose your confidence, right? And then it gives you a dual personality wherein you can hate someone, you can hate your leader, and you will talk bad about him behind his back. But when he shows up, you suddenly become very nice and say, you are the best to have happened. That's what domestication can produce. And so the third word is punishment, which is the Latin word punire, which means to avenge and to inflict pain. So a whole lot of what we call discipline by our people, because a disciplined people, how you measure discipline is the environment they have produced. A disciplined people will produce a disciplined environment, right? A domesticated people will produce a domesticated environment, a lawless environment. So don't tell me let's check your results. It's results that will show us what you've done. And so what the people don't understand is that I know that there are some of the people out here who have also gone to another extreme, right? But what they have done is they have not trampled on the spirit of a child. They've left it because the ferocious curiosity of a child is what must be preserved for the child to innovate. We kill it. So, take for instance, a woman I was working with a woman, and she was saying to me that I was teaching parenting and I was talking about, if a child is splash water in your living room, what will be your response? And your new iPhone is inside that water. What are you going to do? And she said to me, Prince, that I was playing with water when I was a kid. And my parents literally took me to a prophet on the mountain and they tied me. And they beat me because they said I was mommy water and blah, blah. And they were doing deliverance for me. They said I had to start confessing that was really going for meeting so that the beating will stop. Right. That could have been a swimmer. That could have been an oceanographer. That could have been anything. Right. So that's why the first 3 years of a child, you don't judge a child. So when parents say to me, my child is stubborn at age 3, I say, no. Your job is scouting. You scout the potential of the child and then you document it. Right. So we don't understand what discipline really is all about. Because if you say these children are bad, they've raised bad children, but then all your prayer point is to move here. Right. You're going to the embassy, you are praying, you are whatever. Then you need to check yourself. And we also speak as if we don't have the good and the bad in Nigeria. We have the good and the bad and the ugly is in every society. And so what we do is we pick the bad in the West and then we exaggerate it, right? And then we pick the feel good, which doesn't even exist really, amidst our people, and we exaggerate. An average person is not confident. And how many, I when I got to America, I joined Rotary Club and my mayor was beside me. We were having conversation. The superintendent of the police was in my Rotary. We were having conversation. I wasn't afraid, right? Can I talk to a local government chairman in Nigeria. I mean, I I had an experience one time where we're supposed to do something in the house, and there was a commissioner, who refused to see a lady because when she came in, everybody knelt down. The lady did not kneel down. Refused to see someone, and the lady is not a Yoruba lady. Refused to see her. Right? And so there are things we have normalized, and I don't know how we got to that conclusion that our children are disciplined and we literally domesticated our children, and that's why you see them when they escape to another country, they become totally different, and sometimes, in fact, some schools, they used to call me to help them understand African children because the concerns for many of the teachers here is that our children don't ask questions, especially children of new immigrants. To say, why is it that your children from Africa, they don't ask questions? So I have to explain to them that where we come from, you don't ask questions though, right? So you give them some time when they blend, they ask questions. Because if you can't ask questions, if you can't question the status quo, you can't innovate. Election happened last year. We were all here, right? See the way Americans will insult their president, talk about, you are not afraid that some guy is coming to your house to arrest you, but go and insult anybody in Africa and see what happens to you. So those are shades of domestication because people are literally walking on eggshells. I mean, I'll look at my dad. My dad, you needed to hear the blaring. We knew the sound of his horn of his car. You had that. You had to shape yourself. If you were doing anything like watching a movie, you have to quickly carry your books and behave as if, that's what, so when we say that many of us are hypocritical, right? We are living dual lives. That was subliminally built into us because our truth, we cannot say it to our parents, right? But these ones, the parents, they'll say, okay, I'm going to a party, the party your child is going and all. So it's not true when we say that we are disciplined. It's because we don't even know the difference between discipline and domestication. Mostly what we do is domestication.
All right. Thank you for watching thus far. And this is not the end. We'll continue after this. I just want to say thank you to the partners of this podcast who bring it to you. What you'd call our sponsors is Lightforth. Lightforth is your online solution for job applications in 2025 and beyond. If you're a person who's in the job market, Lightforth is the solution that not only trains you in the job, whatever the job, Lightforth helps you to prepare your resume to make sure that it is compliant according to the industry standards and also helps you apply for the jobs. In addition, Lightforth also prepares you for the interviews, does the interview alongside you, and gives you all the back-end information. So essentially, just think of yourself as having another self, an avatar that can do all the job applications for you and knows every single job, every single vacancy in your field, and can tailor your resume and your application to every single job while knowing every single answer to every single job. That's just amazing. It is said that it takes an average of 20 minutes to properly apply for just a job. Lightforth does it for you in seconds. For that whole 20 minutes, Lightforth will apply to over 100 jobs for you and beyond. To learn more, the link is in my bio. Just look for the link where it says Lightforth app or Lightforth job application. Thank you, Lightforth. What I will take from that is that, because you said a line that you said, so we take the worst in this society and we pit it against the best in our society, which even really doesn't exist.
Yes.
So my conclusion is that white people or the West, they are better parents than Nigerians and Africans.
I agree. Based on data even
based on the scorecard.
Based on results. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have, because again, there are shades of parents in Africa who got it right. I always tell people that my mom was my mom never beat me. My mom never yelled at me. It was my father that was doing the beating, right? But my mom, when I was smoking on campus, I didn't know.
Wait, first of all, you smoked.
Oh yeah, I smoked. I was a bad boy. Yeah, I was a very, very bad boy.
You were never a bad boy. Where were you ever a bad boy?
Tell you what you're lacking. I was a bad boy. I was a sex addict as a teenager.
Oh my goodness.
Right. Maybe you didn't hear that story.
Oh no, I've actually heard the story.
I was very, very bad. Right. But when I stopped smoking, I was smoking in front of my room one day. And there was this conversation going on within me. And it was like, if your mom came to school right now, she saw with cigarette, what was she going to do? My answer was my mom would just pass out. And on the strength of that, I stopped smoking. Because my mom, I saw her love everyone. I saw my mom welcome people. If you did something that was wrong, my mom will not, she will have a conversation with you. So and when I met her father, my granddad, I knew why my mom was like that. So there are Africans who also have parented well. They are in the minority, but they have done very well. And how you know is when you meet a confident adult, right, who can engage everywhere they go, who is not afraid that a governor. I sit beside a governor, a first lady, and I'm having conversations. And people, sometimes when my dad was an Anglican priest, by the way. And so an Anglican priest. Okay. So one of the things Anglicanism taught us is never to be afraid of the priest, right? And honor them, revere them, but never be afraid of them. So we question them. My father would face church and render account once a year. There were people who would prepare their own accounts and they would question him. They put him on the spot. It was when I joined Pentecostalism that I realized that people around their pastor will begin to shake, I couldn't understand it. It was I asked direct question. I think it was the first Pentecostal pastor I now met that looked like a proper being that was not afraid of what Reverend Sam Adeyemi, because he now did normal things that I saw my father did, So it's a lot of us don't know that it's a big man society and it's an emotional society. The problem is out here is a systems-based society where nobody is above the law. They can convince you as a president, whatever it is, you can go, but people are above the law. And so when you have a continent or a space where people are above the law, there is nothing you will be able to do. We will dance when it pays us. We will cry when it doesn't pay us. You can't build a society that way.
Okay. So speaking of this, now we're having this conversation, obviously in the United States. Your family is not in Nigeria, as I know. Where is the better? Because I think I've asked my last 3 guests this question, because incidentally, without meaning to talk about it, it's just that when you interview people and you're not in Nigeria, you need must talk about the fact that, hey, what are you doing here? And so the conversations begin to rage online, the debate, hateful comments, attacks. Whenever anybody sits in this chair and says that, hey, I left Nigeria because Nigeria wasn't working, or Nigeria is bad, or anything, they come, don't speak ill of your home, and I agree. Our people say, the people of Ajawa say, Omo Ali. No Fowowe Juwe Ile Baba. It's a bastard who stands afar and speaks ill of his father's house. But do we take that too far? And here's my question. Where's the better place to raise a family now, objectively? Because we see these things where they say in America, you can't beat your kids. If you beat your kids will call the police, the kids here. Again, a bit like the question I asked. So where's the better place really, as an African now, as a Nigerian, to raise your kids? Again, let me qualify that. Because again, you will see online now, on social media, people saying, I'm taking my kids back home. I've been seeing that quite a bit. I'm taking them back home. They are here and they are beginning to get lawless. They are not listening. So I'm taking them back home. So where's the better place?
I think the best place is your home. That's the best place to raise your child, wherever home is for you. Now, the problem is, again, because we're very emotional, we're not systems driven. You see, raising a child is like raising terrorists, right? It's a terrorist cell, for lack of a better word. And so all the sleeper cells and the terrorism, they have a script that they are running. They have the environment you have created. So in the parenting quadrant, we have like 4 quadrants. You have the seed, which is the child, the seed owner, which is God, the seed handler, which is you, and the seed environment. Now, all those 4 elements you must interact with them for you to raise a proper child. Now, the problem is that, and I laugh when I see that decision of, oh, my child is badly behaved, I'm sending him back to Africa. If I see parents who say, oh, my child is smoking marijuana here, I'm sending him back to Africa so that they can toughen him. And I'm like, you don't think that they smoke marijuana in Nigeria? And then say, no. In fact, let's even talk about, sometimes it's the fear of LGBT. Right, and they say,
QQ is there.
Yeah, I don't want my child to become all these people. I'm sending back to Nigeria. And I'm like, see, let me tell you, I have worked in the Nigerian space. I've worked in almost every top schools. I've never met one that didn't have shades of that. I can break Nigeria down and tell you what habit is prevalent in almost every part of Nigeria. And I said the population of the LGBT community in Nigeria may actually be more than those in the United Kingdom. And then they are looking at me and saying, what are you talking about? I said, because I know, because I relate and I have data. I attract the pornography industry in Nigeria, for example, from the days you can't find any Nigerian on the porn scene till there was only one lady called Afro Candy, till now where they are actually at par with the American porn industry. And the parents are looking at me and they're like, really? I said, what are you talking about? Right? Do you know how many people I see regularly? Because my work is confidential. I know things. There are websites where these guys have built a website for themselves where you can actually pick someone and then the person will come and meet you and stuff like that.
Where?
In Nigeria.
Where you can pick somebody of same sex.
Yeah. And this was as far back as 2009.
You're making me feel like a very naive person because I've never heard.
Yeah, because it's not your field, right? As in, people look at me and they're like, so I said, see.
And kids have access to that website.
Yeah. And I said to them, you don't understand what's going on, right? And so, because the problem in the world is because America is very overt about whatever they're doing. They're not hiding to do it. Right. So, for example, when they passed the law to LGBT, when Obama was in power, and people said America, I said, but are you aware that Canada has passed this law 10 years ago? How Canada manages to hide under the radar and everybody is saying that? In fact, when I go to Canada and they talk to me about how it's better to raise a child in Canada, I said, no, it's actually, you can raise a child better in Texas than in many states, many provinces in Canada. Yeah, so how they got the idea that sending a child back to Africa is what's going to solve this problem, is beyond me. I don't know what data they have, right? If you need to admit that, there's a society where the child is growing up, but what have you done in your own family? And I understand what the problem is. A typical family, especially because for us who are like blacks and Africans, we learn by observing the people in front of us. Now, all the other races also do the same. So the Indians and the Chinese and the Palestinians, there are things they have also learned by modeling. But originally, if you check the history, those things were first of all documented. So there were a group of people who took responsibilities to know that, okay, this is the way to live and blah, blah. So it's like copying the right things and copying the wrong thing. Now you meet people, for example, who are not Christians, but they live out the Bible because of maybe the mentors or the models in their lives, literally. So they're not even aware whether it's in the Bible and it's producing results for them. So that's what is happening. So a typical family does not have a family governance system. And family governance system is to say, okay, as a family, what is our family vision? What are the family values? What are the DNA traits? What are the legends of this family? In fact, talking about legends, I have taught classes to Africans in America regularly. I have found less than 1% of my students able to tell me the name of the man in the fourth generation in their family. That is scary. So a lot of our people...
That is saying that they don't even know who their great-grandfather is.
Yes.
So they know their father, they probably know their grandfather.
They don't know the great-grandfather or even the great-great-grandfather. They don't know the name. They don't know what the man has achieved. And so if you don't know the man in the fourth generation, how do you even curate your family history? Because predominantly a lot of our children, they misbehave because they don't know who they are. Right? Yoruba people say, and what the means is...
please translate.
Atata is a child from a honorable home does not misbehave.
I like that transition. Right? A child of pedigree.
Yeah.
Behaves
and so
pedigree.
You know what is handed over to you. So if you're growing up and then you are showing your children, oh, there was this Lagbaja in the fourth generation. He was a pioneer. He was the one that pioneered this. And then the man of time, he was the one that created it. The man of time is the one that created it. The one after is the one that created it. Then it's you. So what are you going to do? So your child knows every time he goes around and say, let's come and smoke marijuana. He's able to say, oh no, where I come from, we don't do this kind of thing. Right? So we don't have the legends, family legends, and the stories that we're telling our children. And so if we don't tell them the stories, Everything they hear about Africa are the bad stories, the misbehavior of the bad governments and what have you. And so that, as simple as that. Meanwhile, if you ask a typical Indian, they know the great-great-grandfather, they know those things. Jews, they know these things. And it's also because we try to run away from what we call the bad side of our ancestors, right? And I say to people, no, even Jesus, that you now say you are the son of Jesus, Jesus had a prostitute in his lineage. The Bible did not hide it. Rahab was there. There was another guy who slept with his son's wife and produced 2 children. Judah, he mistakenly did it. Bible did not hide that story. And so...
I mean, talk much less of King David.
Yeah.
King David, the murderer.
Yeah. So, but our people, because maybe religion has told them, your father was one Oluwawo. If your father was an Ifa priest, then there's priesthood in your lineage. You are a lineage of futurists, right? And so they don't even know how to package the story in the contemporary manner that can be inspiring to the younger generation. And so when you don't have all these things, you will now blame the society your child is living in for the challenges your child is having. You are not going to send your child back to a society that you ran away from, in quote, that you claim, oh, government is bad, they have no respect for blah, blah, blah. You want to send your child back to that society. Now, I always tell them, if you want to do that, make sure you have a proper support system where you're sending your child. But I don't believe that you need to abdicate your responsibilities to some other people, thinking that just by is it not? So if you say you are sending your child to Nigeria, what part of Nigeria are you talking about? Is it Zamfara? Is it Kano? Right? Is it Kaduna? Don't you see that they kidnap people regularly in some of those places? So there is no society that is pure or that is absolutely sane. So what I say to people is that, hey, fortify your family and do what is right? Because the most important nation on earth is your family. And so that's the best place to actually raise a child.
Okay. They will ask. I can just see the comments when you mentioned there's a website that people go to and order same sex. What's it called?
No, I can't mention it on the camera because, and for obvious reasons, if you mention it, people don't know about it. We go there and start.
It might just have the opposite.
There was a concept called Fokarama, which happened in a lot of schools, way back, which was what we replaced.
Called what?
Fokarama. Fokarama is like, when you were in school, you had school father, school son, right? But then, I spotted this, I tracked in a lot of schools and I raised a lot of alarm in Nigeria, but people didn't pay attention, right? And so when I started saying some things and people say, oh, these people, this community, I said the children of those days have now grown, they are now in their 20s. Fokarama is you have a school son and then what your school father did before was to protect you, maybe in exchange for provisions or you send something to him and you ran errands for him. But now school fathers sodomize their school sons and they swear them to an oath never to tell their parents. And so there was an entire generation of children who went to boarding houses, who were sodomized, right? It was like a rookie welcome party, right? And so they went through the rank, they rose to senior students and they repeated the same act, right? And so a few schools spotted it, and what they usually would do is that the person they caught is they expel or they suspend. And I say to them, no, don't just suspend. Can you do more investigation and find out if it's not a culture in your school? But again, because, we like, oh, our school is a Christian school, and then people hide a whole lot of things. But a whole lot of things happen in there, right? People do swinger sex party, all over some cities in Nigeria. There are places where, stuff happens. So there is nothing that is happening in America that they want to point at. It's just because America is overt and you can watch it, but a corresponding version, or if not worse, happens everywhere else.
See how I'm looking at you. See how I'm looking at you.
In fact, let me tell you. So the porn industry, when the porn industry in Nigeria was going, because I track all these things, the porn industry was such that I knew when those girls were paid $2,000 to come and act porn. Right. I interviewed some of them.
What do you mean porn industry in Nigeria?
Nigeria has a porn industry. For example, Asaba was very, very prominent in the development of the porn industry in Nigeria, right?
We have porn as in video, Nigeria.
Nigerian porn industry has grown to a level that they are actually competing. We don't know which one is bigger between Nigerian porn industry and American porn industry at the moment.
I have never seen. I mean, I don't watch porn, but I've never even.
Please don't watch
it. As we grew, I've run across normal porn, but I've never seen.
I tracked for 11 years. Nigerian porn, I knew when there was no human soul that you can say Nigerian, that you can see the picture. I knew when Africanity started, and even that one was, and I knew when they started paying $2,000. Now I think it's like $100 or something. It's huge. It's now like a network marketing, and there are top people who invest in that sector, but it's a silent sector that nobody talks about.
And it is distributed where?
Distributed all over. In fact, the largest consumers of Nigerian porn are young people between the ages of 12 and 24.
Oof.
Yes.
So that's access to the internet.
Absolute access.
Yeah. There's a porn, and I'm saying this again, knowing that maybe quite a few people watch. I say, Teju is so naive.
Well,
but I mean,
I don't see it as being naive, because, focus creates blindness. You have your sector. You're focused on your sector. I mean, there are things you will tell me about your sector right now that I'll be like, am I in Nigeria? Because it's not my focus. This is my focus. I mean, I taught sexual education. I created the first comprehensive sexual education kit in Nigeria way back, right? So when people come to me and come to report, I'm asking questions. I mean, like there was a time a father came to my office and brought the daughter. The daughter was 8. They said as at that morning, they checked our device and they realized that she's been on 62 porn sites that morning. And these were Nigerian porn sites, right? And so I had to sit with her. Where did you hear about this? How did you know? Oh, I was in the school bus and there was a boy who said, talked about Nigerian pornography, someone in a class. And so she just went innocently and just Googled, put the keywords there and then it popped up. And then she started consuming.
Okay, let me back up a bit to is boarding house a good idea now? Because I attended a boarding house, and I had a great experience. But sometimes I see how not everybody did, and it ruined some people's life.
Yes.
Though they were in a very minority back in my day. But I also see how, but for Providence, I could also have been very damaged.
Yes.
And so for that reason, I'm not particularly pro that type of institute, pro boarding house anymore, but maybe I'm getting it wrong. Is boarding house a good, is it a good thing?
Okay, so
should you send your kids to boarding house?
It's neither here nor there. I always say to parents that there are things that must be in place before you send your child to a boarding house. Never send your child to a boarding house until you have proven that your child is a proper ambassador of your family values. If your child has not mastered your family values, then don't send your child out. And don't send your child out because you claim you are busy and then you don't have time for your child. Then don't give back to a child. Because if the reasons are right, and then the custodians and the owners of boarding houses, in fairness, a couple of schools in Nigeria, they've gotten it right and they treat your child as if it were their child. But some other schools, I know your child will be damaged. Your child returns with low self-esteem and all sorts of things, and then because depending on, again, so we say that the higher the school fees, the more problematic it can be, because, we've seen schools where children of the high and the mighty will literally molest another person and then nobody is able to talk to them. I remember there was a school that called me to come and address a boy. They said the boy is showing porn to his mates. I said, so how come you are calling me to fly to some other city to come and address this? I said, because his father is a major general in the Nigerian army. So it's me that should come and talk to you. Do you get? So every school is supposed to...
But wait, is that a thing? The higher the school fees, the more problematic that school
when it comes to moral values, at least, it's not for all of them, but for many of them. Yeah, because then you have the children of the, fathers in high places that nobody can talk to. And the children know that whatever they do, they will get away with it. Right. And so you have those kind of situations.
I would never have thought I would have thought that the higher the school fees, the better. Isn't that how normal people think?
And the better the facilities, not necessarily the better the moral values in there. Yeah, because the children of the poor, where is he going to say iPad to bring to school? Right? Where is he going to be showing a child in Nigeria that doesn't, maybe the phone he has is 32, 33, 10 or something, but these are the ones who travel. These are the ones who have sex and have all kinds of things. I mean, I sit with them regularly, and then you see what's going on. You know, they are the ones that can play truth or dare and dare people to try out and sneak out of schools and do. I mean, I know some private schools way back where, even some private universities where students sneak out and then they rent a place in VI and then they do all sorts of parties in there. You know, so I hear all kinds of things, right? And so it's neither here nor there. But I always tell parents, do your due diligence to find out, okay, does the school have a child protection system? What's their boarding house policy like? Who are the boarding house masters? You know, what trainings have they been through? You know, what's the system like and the structure? How many people are in the room? You know, and then you want to interview some of the people in this school too. I mean, a boy told me, he said, see, mentioned a particular school that he said, please, if you are sending your child, don't send your child to my school. Said because my school is not I've told my parents, but they've not taken me out of that school. You know, so because school system is not what it used to be, right? The real educators have left. I mean, we still have quite a number of them, but they are getting older. So you have a lot of business people. And when business is the in thing and not the quest to raise a child or properly groom a child, there'll be a lot of gaps. I've troubleshot quite a number of schools in Nigeria, and I see a lot of the gaps that existed in there. And you just need to take the children through a simple exercise to say, okay, write your deepest secrets that you don't want your parents to know. You'll be shocked what they'll be writing to you. You will almost pass out. Right, and you'll be wondering, and sometimes it's a Christian school. So that's why I always tell people that you need to differentiate a Christian school from a Christian named school. You know, and yes, so those are the issues. And then you have shortage of manpower when it comes to school counselors because you don't have too many of them, and even the ones they are not skilled because things have gone beyond what people are dealing with. This generation Z and Alpha, they are very, very smart. And then before you know it, I mean, you'll be saying one thing, they are saying another thing, and then they've outsmarted you.
Talking of very smart, I know some people who have refused. In fact, somebody was telling me about a couple who have a child who is probably 6 now, maybe 5, and he has never used the phone.
Yeah, he
hardly ever watches TV.
Yeah.
And all of that. I thought that was an extreme. I mean, I'm like, kilo day. Why? Is this? I mean, is this a good thing? How do we now begin to protect children from the internet and from TV? Because I mean, I've tried, and sometimes I just think it's a lost battle all of a sudden. But are you going to sit there with the child throughout? And even when you put all those guards, they say don't go on this website. Really, I mean, even on the website that have been vetted by you, all of a sudden an advert or something. Yes. I mean, I've seen content providers now that now they slip subliminal messages into the content. I mean, so what do we do as far as
content producers in Nigeria, for example? I mean, I don't watch a lot of content creators in Africa, but in Nigeria, I can summarize as soft porn. Majority of them is soft porn. It's some guy sleeping and one director saying, okay, you know, just pretend as if you're sleeping with that, then the person is sleeping with the person. And, you know, it's soft porn, basically, and it's scary. Now, about phone usage, again, it's like
that's phone usage. That's you see all the curvy girls and all the skimpy, and so the idea is to produce maybe a skit that is very funny, and a man sees a woman and all of that, but it begins to approach soft porn.
It's soft porn.
Not that it's approaching.
It's because there's no regulation, you know, and there is no balance. I mean, if someone that is not centered, if it's producing a content, is going to go to another extreme. Because the values that guide him, you know, are not even existent, right? If you are producing a content, you have the awareness to say, no, we shouldn't go this route, right? But how many people are grounded that way? People were not properly brought up. Parenting is failed in many families. Those people producing those content, that's what they're using to feed their family. So they buy a car for the mother is dancing, right? Because the child is feeding the parents, right? And so all goes because it's very toxic. In fact, I think I wrote about it last week to say, sometimes I wish I don't even understand Yoruba, especially the Yoruba content creators it's almost as if it's a curse to give some of them a phone based on the madness going on the airwaves in Nigeria, right? And so what we say is this: before you give your child a phone, for example, in my house, you don't receive a phone until you're 13. And when we give you a phone, you don't have a phone. We give you a phone on trust, an extension of our phone, because you can't probably afford to maintain a phone. So there are rules in there, right? And we give you that rules. If it's okay by you, you sign, and then you can get it. And if we notice that...
What do you mean you sign?
Of course, you have to sign.
You give them a hard copy agreement.
Yeah, you sign because I can withdraw it, and I've withdrawn it a number of times, right? If I notice that, and you can't even argue, if you notice that, this phone is now becoming a distraction, maybe to your academics or whatever, and then when we even give you a phone, you have to submit your phone at 9 p.m. every day and pick it up the following day because we need you to sleep. If you give children phone and they go to their room, they're going to be chatting with their friends, and and before you know it, they wouldn't sleep. And they feel drowsy in the morning, so you submit your phone to a basket, once it's 9 o'clock, and then you can pick it up in the morning. And then you can't play a game during school hours or during school week. It's only on weekends, right? So it's about family system and putting the right safeguarding measures in place as a family. And you see, sometimes the children will try to push the edge. Like my daughter was saying, but this one day she said to me that there was a child maker in our school, but they allow. I said, "What is your name?" He said, "My name is Mole." Mole what? Mole Oluwa Praise for. Okay. I said, "Do we change your name to their father's name so that we can move your things?" I said, "No, Daddy, that's not what I'm saying." I said, "What exactly are you saying? Our family is not their family." If they and the interesting thing was, I think I learned from Snoop Dogg. There was a time Snoop Dogg was going for a shoot, and the media people noticed that his son was not going for that shoot because his son always followed him. And so they asked him to say, "Oh, why is your son not following you for this shoot?" And he said, "Because what we're shooting is adult content." And so they asked him, "But what you are shooting, the consumers are going to be children, and don't you think?" And he said, "Well, I am responsible for my child. Their parents should be responsible for their own children." Do you get? And so I'm like, if this guy has the awareness to say this, then why would I subject my child and not put... it's like you give your child a phone. It's like giving a child the key to your car and now hiring prayer warriors to say, may there not be accident. An accident will occur, right? We are in desperate times and desperate measures as God, or else your children will not be able to read. They will be absolutely distracted. And that's happening to a whole lot of them that are spending a lot of time on social media when they're supposed to be in class. In fact, teachers here, are powerless sometimes, right? And then they send a letter home. If you send a letter to me as a parent, I'm going to ask you, what is your job as a teacher? Withdraw the goddamn phone and, let my child come and report to me. So they'll say, we have policy. You don't do that to a child. I say, please, exempt my child from your policy. If I need to sign something, let me sign it. Discipline him and let him come and tell me.
Give you a waiver.
I'm telling you, because you can actually do that. Or else, I know one boy was talking to one of my mentees here, and the woman literally came to me that in the son's school, the 13-year-old boy was telling her that he has a girlfriend and they're having sex in the school toilet. So I'm like, what is the school doing? Where are the teachers? I said, well, I said, what's going on here? Right? I said, so when you go for parents-teachers meeting, what do you say there? Do you get? So it's basically parents need to embrace parenting knowledge. You need to admit that you don't know, because that arrogance that ignorance that is now masked as arrogance is the order of the people. Just assume that I get back to my child, I can take care of my child by myself. No, it's a science. And there are documented information that you might want to interact with that gives you a framework on how to effectively raise a child.
Oh, well, all this you're saying, if I was watching you speak before I had kids, I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't have kids. Although there's a part of me that feels cool, but I won't say that. At the risk of being immodest. Okay, so let's talk percentages now. Based on the number of people that you counsel and the number of interventions that you do every year, say let's use 100%. What percentage of kids are you seeing that have gone wayward? What in short, another way of asking that question is, what percentage of parents have gotten it right by omission or commission? 100%.
Maybe 25%
are doing wrong.
25% are doing right. Maybe less than that, actually. Majority, because we run assessments and then the assessment shows the level they're in, right? A majority don't even understand parenting to start with.
Oh, no, let me ask that question another way. You have answered it.
Yeah.
But I think, let me ask it another way. What is the hope for Nigeria and Africa? Because we keep saying children are the leaders of tomorrow, right? Have we done a good job? Because we keep thinking that it will get better.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're mindful of the fact that we're perhaps not raising people that will make it better. So that's what I really want to know. Are we raising the generations we're raising, are they really going to be better?
It's tough. It's not just Nigeria. It's not a global problem, right? As you must have seen, look at the two people that contested election in America. Then you begin to ask yourself, where are the 30-year-olds? Where are the, it's a challenge with the new generation that is emerging. See the tech startups, they raise money. And I'm asking, where's the corporate governance, right? Who is on their board to guide them? Because they raise money and then they buy cars. And then before you know it, the company has crashed.
Where's the elder?
Yeah, so there's no elder in the room that is able to guide. And then sometimes they're not able to defer to the elder. So, but I always say that, the fact that you hear all sorts about Gen Zs doesn't mean all of them are bad, right? It's a function of the parenting that we have deployed. And so it's actually, honestly, I'm a bit afraid of the future based on what I see and the people I'm dealing with and what the children are saying to me. In fact, there's a new fear called the fear of growing up that we are tracking. Because and so what's happening with the fear of growing up is the children don't want to grow up because they're seeing how stressful parenting is, how the parents combine two jobs, and they're like, if this is adulthood, I don't want to grow up. And so suddenly they stop getting interest in academics, they just lock themselves, they just want to eat and do nothing more, right? And so it's parenting has grown to a level that we need to do it differently. And that's why in America, for example, we're creating sessions with Nigerian parents, Nigerian communities to now educate them to say, okay, these are the templates that has worked. This is the template you have to follow. You have to literally create a village. We say it takes a village to raise a child, right? And so in the village, you're telling African stories, African heroes, you're asking questions, you're giving them tasks and all. So there's a template that you have to deploy to get things right. But it's very, very scary. These children are very intelligent academically. In fact, they're very smart. But when it comes to moral values, when it comes to the ability to self-regulate, when it comes to the maturity that we had when we were their age, it's almost non-existent. And also, I think it's because we've shielded them. In the days of no phone, nothing, we left home, started walking to school by myself, maybe at age 5, right? And my parents trusted me to come back home. So by the time I was 17, I went to university by myself. My parents, none of them showed up in my university till I graduated. And I graduated, right? Because I could, self-motivate myself. Right. But now we've done everything for them. We're doing everything for them that they can't even do anything for themselves. And then how do they attend responsibilities when we've done everything for them? So when I see parents here who tell me, Praise, come and help me talk to my 16-year-old. She can't even cook. She can't do anything. I said, so what household chores does your child do? Say nothing. I said, no, because in my house, if you are the one mopping the house every day, the other person is in the kitchen. If the other person is in the kitchen, you are the one mopping the house. There is the discipline, the household chores. The discipline he gives to your children. And there is another thing parents need to understand, right? And so you give a child 3 tasks to do, and you go back there and it's not done, right? It's not that it's not been done. But what parents, because that gets a lot of parents worked up. What is happening there is that the games these children play, he has a pause button, right? So if they play a lot of games, and so he's playing 3 games simultaneously, and then it's deployed the pause button and it's container. So it's the same way they do their chores, how you give it to them. So if you say, lay your bed, do the dishes, he does the bed halfway, then he gets bored, he pauses it. He goes to the dishes, he pauses it. So you come back and it looks like everything is half done or not done at all, and then you are upset. You need to understand, whenever you see anything that you don't approve, study it instead of just reacting. If you study it, you can get the root cause and you can get the pattern. If you get the root cause and the pattern, you can create a change that solves the problem as a parent.
Okay, so can you do all the right things? I mean, nobody can do all the right things. Nobody is perfect.
Yeah.
But can you try your best to do all the right things and still turn out wayward kids?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because one thing you cannot...
Or on the flip side, can you do the wrong things and somehow lock into turning out great kids?
Yeah. I mean, you can... So there's the providence, divine providence, and you can't rule that out. That happens all the time. To say, oh, my parents were bad, but I turned out right. It could be that based on what the bad things you took a decision to go the other way. All right. But it's the percentage that will do that is very minimal compared to the percentage that will be destroyed, as it were. And that's why Parental principle even says it's 20% that will turn out right out of the 80%. And so if you have 80% who are troubled, right? Election time, they're still going to vote for the most troubled of them, to come and govern over you, because the people that are right are actually 20%. So you need to shift the base a little bit, because it's actually problematic, when you see some of these things. But yes, you can do all you can, and then a child takes a decision by himself, maybe one wrong information, one wrong whatever, a child takes a decision and say, what, based on my free will. I mean, God did everything for Adam, but Adam by himself still decided to eat the forbidden fruit. So it happens. And sometimes, and I always tell people, don't attempt to explain everything. There are things you may not be able to explain, and just leave it the way it is. Because I can study it, but you may not be able to, because some things are just divine providence, right? But oftentimes you do what you need to do, right? At least that is that it might be said of me, I did my best.
Oh,
right.
Or in the more selfish way of putting it,
yeah, but again, just ensure that what you've done is the right thing that could have been done, because it's a strain up a child in the way it should go. It's like you are literally conditioning a child. If you condition a child for 18 years, right, it's almost, there are things if I plan not to do them, I'll still do them, because my father woke us up at 4 a.m., right? You have to pray at 5, right? So it's built into me, waking up. Hard work is built into me. Being a workaholic is built into me, because I don't know any other way, right? So there are things that can be built into your child. And when I went bad, right, my mom was very calm. She was calm and never said anything. And I asked her later, Mom, when I went by, why were you very calm? And my mom said, I've learned enough in life to know that sometimes you will go through a route because of the future you have to create. So he said, when you were bad, I just said to myself that, well, maybe you need to go to that route because of the audience you're going to be reaching out to in the future. He said, because a child of a multitude of prayer can never be lost. Right. And that was what my mom said.
Like a child of a
multitude of prayer can never be lost.
A child of a multitude of prayers can never be lost.
Yeah, that was what my mom said. And she was really, really spot on, because the day I changed, nobody actually preached any message to me. I was in my room and I decided. Right.
And I believe this.
Yeah.
When people go, especially when the when the children start to become teenagers, when they begin to grow, then they start to panic. I know a woman a single mom who was telling me that her child was now 13 and he was now distant. And she was panicked that, look, when he was growing, we used to be the closest and best of friends. I did everything. I raised him. Now he's, and I said, and this was years ago. I didn't know how I was able to tell her that, look, if you have truly done the things that you're claiming that you did, don't worry.
Yeah.
He will come.
Absolutely. They will always turn around. They always turn, and the lessons they've learned from that, they will use it to inspire other people. I mean, it's like the way I say it is that our life is a best-selling movie, right? It has a happy ending. Every bad things you've done are the suspense in the movie. Without those bad things, your story is going to be very boring. So it's it always will add up, even though some people don't survive it.
So you can raise up a child and the child can still go wayward. Reminds me of the immortal words of the philosopher Alhaji Akin Salawa Abeni. Mama mi ṣe púpọ̀ lọ́rọ̀ mi o, father mi ṣe púpọ̀ lọ́rọ̀ mi o, èmi mo yọ ọmọ lóru alára má sunlé o.
Interesting.
You're the one who chose to go that way. Okay, so I wonder how present does the father have to be in the family? I asked this because, well, two reasons really. I dated a bit extensively before I got married, right? And I kind of noticed the strange thing that girls from the single families were somewhat just a bit more to handle than girls who came from a family that had a father and a mother. And after a while, I became quite good at spotting it. Every time I saw a girl who had certain character traits, I'd be like, are your parents together? Or tell me about your dad, or tell me about your parents. And invariably, it's always her dad left, or maybe her dad died when she was younger. So it's always that single parent household thing. And then, so that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, as work begins to ramp up and one has to travel a lot, you begin to wonder, how long can I be away from these kids? How long is too long? I mean, I cannot sit down with them all of the time. Yes. I do have to go. I mean, what if I was deployed in the military? What if I was a pilot? So I begin to wonder now, how long away is too long for a father to be away from his family in the world in which we live right now?
You have touched on a very important aspect of parenting. And that also ties to when people say work-life balance. There is nothing called balance. I tell people it's integration. Because what will balance be for a military man who is in Iraq and his family is in America, right? How present can he be, right? But again, it comes back to systems, because system is what raise a child, right? And so, for example, I fall into the category right now. I travel a lot, right? So I'm spending lesser time with them physically, right? But I'm present in their lives every moment, right? And so what I did was, in the first 7 years of my children's life, because I understand that moments is what children remember, right? And so in the first 7 years, I prioritize my children because that's the formative years, right? So any trip that will coincide with my time with my children, the trip is the one that will have to go. I will choose them, right? So the first 7 years, I ensured that I built a solid structure and for them to be independent minded, right? And when I started traveling, I designed a curriculum. It's called the Royalty, which has a video they need to watch every day, right? And so they watch the video. Then thank God for technology right now. I don't know if I would have coped if there was no technology. Then in the evening, they do a presentation. We have conversations around it, right? And then my wife, we have designed a family system that ensures that, okay, she can carry on the project when I am with them, I'm absolutely home. Like I said, you can't catch, if I'm talking to my children, I don't hold my phone, right? I am absolutely present, because if I'm holding my phone, I'm communicating to them that there's something more important or someone out there, right? And so if you can build a proper system.
Sorry to cut you. If you're talking to your kids, whatever it is you're talking about,
yes,
it doesn't have to be you asking them about school. Yes. Whenever you are talking to your kids, as much as 1B come here and this thing, you shouldn't be talking to your kids and be on Instagram.
You should take your phone out, right? Because it shows respect and regard for them, right? But a lot of us were in some group, we are chatting, and then because in talking to a child, you need to look at their body language. You need to check a whole lot of things, verbal and non-verbal communication. So we are not spending that time. A lot of people live in a house, but they're not socializing at all. And that's the thing. I mean, think about it this way. Teju, when you celebrated your birthday in times past, which one would you prefer? The time when all your friends left wherever they were to come and be with you, or now that they can just greet you on social media and then they think they have wished you a happy birthday?
No, the party now.
Exactly. So presence is what everyone needs. A moment is what your children will remember, right? I worked with a lady whose father only spent 8 years with her before he passed. But this lady had a fantastic, she still referred to everything the father did with her. So it's not even about the quantity of time, it's about the quality of time. There are experiences that you can give to your child that is significant enough that can last them a lifetime. It depends on how you heighten the emotion and how you deploy the experience.
So you can be there all the time, and I mean, you're doing nothing, and you can spend a smaller amount of time and make it, more qualitative, as it were.
Yes.
Wow.
So when you're present, when you're around, I mean, you can devote an entire day to teach stuff, to show stuff, to play together, to do you can even record it. Now we have all these devices. You record it so that they can replay it, right? And it can form part of your family library.
Okay, now let's get into something that I've always wondered and wanted to ask. Well, I have again experienced, I have grown by experience. How important is it to remain a virgin until you get married? I ask this because the way is where we're raised. The way we're raised in the church. The marriage bed is honorable, is undefiled. Don't be a virgin. And somehow we bought into the fantasy that if you remain a virgin till you get married, everything is going to be a-okay. That's the way they put it, that's your sacrifice to God. That's your gift to God, and then God will gift you a great marriage. But I'm here to represent and say that that's not the case. I've seen experiences, not be said and say, not be said they told me. I've seen people who were virgins. In fact, I know somebody who was a near virgin himself who married a virgin, and they were shocked on wedding night when they couldn't do anything. They erroneously and naively assumed that angels were going to show up and it was going to be bliss on wedding night. They couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
She was in pain. He didn't know what to do. The marriage eventually broke up. And yet I have seen people, some of the most notorious girls and entities, including boys when we were in school, who were notorious, who have what seems to be great marriages now. Yeah. So I think how important is it to remain a virgin?
So a virginity was very important. The Bible will not talk about the 5 foolish virgins. So there's what I call the foolishness of virginity. The foolishness of virginity is where all you have is an untouched hymen and your brain is empty when it comes to how to build a home and how to build an effective relationship, right? And so some of the girls that we claim are wayward by the reason of several experiences and they have enough experience that they convert, that helps them build so they know what not to do. Because they were the ones who slept with other people's husbands and sides. So they knew. In fact, I wrote a book based on that where I went to study the prostitutes and I studied the wives. And I analyzed about 11 things, the difference between the other woman and the woman at home. And I concluded that the 21st century woman must not just be a wife, she must also be a concubine. And that goes for the men as well. Right. And, so having said that, if you are a Christian, I would assume that you believe in chastity and there's nothing wrong with that. But with your chastity, it shouldn't exclude you from becoming aware. For example, there are books that you can study on sexuality, on sex positions. There are, as a matter of fact, when I'm working with people who are virgins and I'm asking them, do you get tempted or something? And they say, no, I don't feel anything. It's a red flag for me. It's a red flag, right? I work with a couple that the woman never enjoyed sex. In fact, the marriage almost packed up. And so by the time I work with her, I realized that this lady, her dream in life was to become a nun. She got married because her mother was on her neck that they gave birth to you, must give birth. So she made her husband's life miserable when it comes to, because a whole lot was going on, right? And so what keeps a home is applied knowledge, right? And so you need to give yourself to knowledge. And it doesn't mean because you are wayward, you're home, because there's another school of thought that believe, if you can give him good sex, you're going to keep him. No, you don't keep a man through good sex alone, right? There are other things. If you give good sex, you can get away with prostitution, but what more can you offer? What more do you also bring to the table? Because a lot of the guys out there also, they are watching a lot of porn and they're thinking, marriage is all about knocking. No, it's beyond that, right? So applied knowledge.
You go learn.
Because if you can't provide leadership, a woman is not likely going to stay with you after a while, even if you have money. Because if money is what makes a marriage work, how come you have women whose husband give them money, but then it's another guy that is servicing them, right? So it's if you are a Christian, follow your Christian virtue and Christian values. Because I know we're talking to an entire audience and people practice all kinds of things, So if you're a Christian, if your Bible says the bed be undefiled, make the bed undefiled. If you have done it, repent and change, right? But it's not guarantee that is the bed undefiled that will make a marriage work. In fact, because I'm professional in my approach, I have met guys who say they cannot marry a virgin. I'm telling you the truth, right? And I'm like, why gonna say no, she'll be naive, she will be, when will I start teaching? Again, it's their beliefs. I don't know if it's correct by them, but whatever values you have subscribed to, leave it out, right? And I've seen people got married as virgins and are doing pretty well in their
Those boys know what they are talking about, sir.
Well.
They know what they are talking. It's work.
So it's neither here nor there. I try to be. But
how important is it really? So I get that, but how important is it that, because some people just think that for some reason if they made a mistake and they are not virgins, the way we've been brought up is you've done something. How important is that virginity factor?
I think the what I consider to be the real issue with virginity, or the real advantage, is that you have no memory to compare your partner with. I think that's the real thing. And I think that's what God was trying to institute. If all you have eaten in your life is a foriro, that's vegetable, you don't know what ogbono is like, right? So you don't miss ogbono, right? But if you have had, like 7, right, then you're able to say, I can't feel you, I can't, then, and sometimes, in fact, that's why we discourage people from watching porn, because, the most important sex organ you have is your mind. right? And so a lot of people are having sex with their partner and they are trying to turn their partner into the woman they saw in the porn movie. So it's about your memory, preservation of your memory, purity of your memory, so that you are not necessarily projecting someone else on the person that is your partner.
That was I clap for you. I clap for. I hardly clap, but that makes sense. That makes sense because I can relate. If you've been out there running the girls and running the clubs, the day you get married and you decide to be a faithful man or a faithful woman, you are going to have to detox, and it's not going to be easy.
Yes.
Oh boy. Yeah. So that's very, very key. All right. I want to talk polygamy. Because there's a rising school of thought now that says the African man was never meant to be monogamous.
Yes.
He was a polygamous creature, and that the white man and the West have indoctrinated us, and that this is unnatural for us. Now, what do you? I mean,
okay,
because it does have some.
No, they have their merits.
Yeah, it has some merits. Really, when you think about it, really.
This is what I think. I believe that everyone is a product of your upbringing, your environment, and your significant emotional experience, right? And I treat because of the work I do, I never project another client on another client, right? I treat everyone based on who they are. But what I always say is that every time you see people struggling with something, right? Scientifically, what we try to find out is, has something else been forced on them that is not natural with them, and they are now trying to, adapt to what has been imposed on them, right? And so there are men who they will stick to one wife and they will never cheat. There are some who are fasting and praying to say, God, the body wants to do this thing. Now, you can actually tame the body. So again, let's not make it now look like learned helplessness where you are helpless. Right. Again, it depends on your mindset about these things. Now, are there men who can manage more than one woman? Absolutely, yes. Are there women who can manage more than one? I have studied, because I've studied almost all the family system in almost all the nations of the world, right? In theory, I know 7 cultures where the women are the ones who can marry more than one husband. In fact, there's a culture where a woman had 3 husbands, and then they take shifts to be husbands. So there's a husband who resumes from 7 a.m. in the morning to 11, and he closes at 11. Another one.
Please give me the address. Give me the address on the website. I want to.
It's not the website. It's a study, right?
Okay.
And the culture still exists. In fact, they say divorce is rare in that culture. There are about 7 of them. One of them I think is a culture in Kenya. One of them is in India. All right. And so it's not a problem for them. And it's worked for them over the years. And so I always say to people, because I'm a Christian and I know what my value says, I don't project it on everyone. I try to study people. I've worked with a man who had 4 wives and he was almost depressed. He was having IBP, and then he was saying to me, Praise, I want to send them away. I said, no, what if we can create a system that makes this work? It took me 1.5 years. But they are a very happy family today, right? And maybe because of my upbringing again, in the days of Anglican, the Baba Ijo had 2 wives. They all come to church, they start together. So maybe the Orthodox churches have a way of, but what I always say to people is this: I would appreciate if you know your tendency as a man and you are able to openly tell the person you are dating to say, you know what, I think I have the tendency to marry more than one, and I'm going to marry more than one. Is it okay by you? That full disclosure, so that the person knows what he's getting into. So this one is going to bring in 3 wives. So than to pretend that you are a monogamy is your thing, and then you have like 25 side chicks elsewhere, right? And so I don't think it's an African thing again, because I don't like stereotyping. If it was to be an African thing, all the cases that we've seen in America of congressmen, who are cheating on their wives, it's a human thing. Right. And that's why even in the Bible, you would see some of the people we call patriarchs, they have more than one. Meanwhile, some other people who have one. People have said that God's plan is one man, one wife, which is fine. I agree. My my grandfather had, I can't remember, maybe over 10. Right. If you didn't have 10, maybe my mother would not have been born, right? Some of us are products of polygamy, right? But that man managed his home so well. All of them are like siblings. They do things together, right? My mom was an only child from my mother's side, but you wouldn't know because everyone rallied around. I had to study the model my grandfather deployed, right? But that may not work for some other people, So again, I always tell to people, be true to yourself. So don't say if it's what you want, if it's your choice, understand that it's your choice. Don't say because you're an African, that's why, But yeah, we know historically, a lot of Africans have, not even Africans, if you check the history of marriage, actually, which I've studied, from the Stone Age to the Roman Empire. In the Roman Empire era or the Renaissance era, marriage was never about love for many of them. Marriage for some in the Roman Empire, it was you got married so that you can have an heir to have inheritance. So it wasn't about I love you, I love you. The I love you started in 1800 when the Greek poets started writing romantic stuff, and then women liberation started. That was when the people now started doing the proposal thing. But before then, check history. It was you go and meet this person. I want you. You have no say. I'm going to be your husband. And then people got married and they had children because they needed workforce, basically. So if we don't understand history, we won't appreciate where we're at. And so what I say is there are still Stone Age people in our days. Let them marry themselves. There are still Renaissance people in our age. Let them marry themselves. There are still the modern people in our age. Let them marry themselves. So it's not one shoe that fits all. It's like saying that if the whole world becomes Christian, now the whole world we experience is not true. Right, because even in Christian association, there's no peace, right? So it's not really monogamy that brings anything. It's a system you have chosen to deploy, that promotes peace, and it starts with your own personal wellness. So if your personal wellness, you've done everything, you've healed from your trauma, and what you want to do is to marry 3 wives, go ahead, but let there be full disclosure from the get-go to say, you know what, I am going to marry more than one. If the lady is okay, it's fine. Right? So we have a king in our Oba, has more than one. And people say accepting that he's a Christian and whatever. So full disclosure is what I think is missing. Right? And if you know that one wife, one husband is what you like or what you want, please feel free and be loyal to that. But don't hide under African or Asian or anything.
Oh, all right. Okay, great. My finalish question. Do women really change when men bring them to the West? Because you see these stories online, some of them ending tragically. A guy was here working in the United States and then he thought that to get a good wife, he would go home to get one from his people. And then he brought her to the United States and she was naive and innocent. And then all of a sudden he empowered her. Yeah. She became professional and then she grew and sprouted wings and wasn't listening to him again and became a thorn in his side. Yeah. And eventually he killed her. Yeah. I mean, we shared a couple of those stories, right? Which is part of the problem that you're here to solve, at least in the African community and even beyond that, right? So what's going on here? Because we've heard this story one too many times, not always ending in tragedy, but I know enough people personally who they had wives and the wives grew wings and stopped listening. They became short. They got to America and they became liberated, So what's going on here?
So there are a couple of things in there. The person that was here and went to pick a wife from Nigeria also has an ulterior motive. So why didn't you pick a white woman? Why didn't you pick all the ladies around here? You wanted someone you can control, right? And unfortunately, because that's what you're running away from is eventually what you attracted from home. It always happens that way. It's the science of energy management and vibration, which we can't even have time to get into. But the big issues are the fact that I was working in the UK last year, April, and I was looking at the data on marriages among Blacks and Africans. And they said that 51% of the Black immigrants is now single-led families, right? And so divorce, 42% of the divorce is attributed to unreasonable behavior. And what is unreasonable behavior? Unreasonable behavior, especially among new immigrants, is a situation where they come into the West and the West kind of favor women and children, right? So the ladies are able to blend in. So they become American at heart. The children become American at heart. And so they maybe even get a job before the guy, but the guy still expects her to come home and cook and take care of the children and do all the things they used to do. And now in Africa, you have a lot of support. You don't have that support system here. So that's what they call unreasonable behavior. Now, when people say that West is what breaks marriages, it's not true. What the West actually does is that the West sets an exam for you and reveal the true state of your marriage, that you claim was working in Africa. Now, I also know, what you've said, because I know about 3 guys who are actually depressed, clinically depressed right now, because the women actually took everything and then took off, collected the house, collected everything. So they have to go squatting right now. You know how depressing that can be, right? And so I think that our community has not been strong enough wherein we have a strong support system and people we can defer to. I tell people that never get married to someone who doesn't have, Yoruba call it koloko lorun or koloko nidi, someone who doesn't have an authority figure over their lives that they absolutely defer to, right? There are people in my life today that my wife says, oh, let's go and meet Reverend Sam, by the way. I'm thinking, what are we going to go and discuss? I hope she has not gone to report me. Because if that man says, praise, sit down, I'm going to sit down. If I even say I want to leave my wife, divorce my wife, and he calls and says, praise, you need to change that decision, I am going to change that decision because I defer to him. That's my leader. Now, you find that in the Indian community and many of these communities. But what happens is when our people first get here, they become a lord unto themselves. And once you become that, the women begin to attend certain meetings. And I've seen some of the conversation in those meetings where they just tell them, you know what, if you leave him, if he misbehaves, leave him. You don't. So people don't even understand what it takes to build a family out here. The other thing is, in Africa, marriage is emotional. In the West, marriage is systems driven. And so the first thing people need to do when they come in here is to create what we call the family governance system, which we're now teaching them to do. And family governance system is simply saying, okay, what type of family do you want as my wife? What type of family do I want? Right? And so you document that and you create a framework that's, okay, this is how we're going to live. This is the culture we're going to promote. This is how we're going to, because you literally need to script your romance, especially if you are both of you on paid employment and you're on shift. You can go in the morning and he comes back at night and then she goes, where are you going to have time for conversations? So you literally need to script your romance or else you're going to drift apart. She's going to be talking to other people. You're going to drift. After a while, you'll be intellectually incompatible. And that is the reason why a whole lot of marriages are failing out here. Now, I must not, however, forget to say that before people make a choice, right? Yoruba people say that, I don't know how they say it, or something like that, right? You need to check the patterns and the culture of the family of the person you want to get married to. Right? So I believe the big issue is that parents no longer prioritize effective parenting and raising their children properly. Right? Because if people are properly raised and they come together in marriage, they'll be able to resolve a lot of issues. Right? But then people grow out of their parents, nobody can call them. So they become too independent to be interdependent. And so, but because they're in Nigeria, Nigeria will make you very humble and small and you look like, oh, okay, she's not fighting because there's been no opportunity to project what is within. America will give you that platform to show who you are. And so it's not as if people change. It's what within that becomes revealed out here. And that's what a lot of people don't deal with. So I always say to people that before you get married, there are psychometrics you can run. People have been saved that way. A man was going to bring a woman from Nigeria. I said, let me run psychometric test. I ran a psychometric assessment. I saw the attachment styles. I saw the personality types, and then some of the other assessments I ran on her. And I told him outrightly, you marry this lady, you won't last 2 years because there's a lot of trauma points in her life that has not been resolved. And America will show her, how to deal with you. And the guy was really, really grateful. I said, oh, praise, but I love her. What can I do? I said, well, I can engage her. So by the time I began to engage her, she saw those trauma points that she didn't even know. She just felt it was a normal life, right? And she agreed to say, praise thank you. Because if I had gone into marriage, I know I would have. And she began to share with me how she had dealt with a past boyfriend that she even dated in Nigeria, right? And so when people don't know that these kind of interventions exist, they will go ahead with a boy meets girl. I mean, you thought our parents were stupid when, if you say you are dating someone, they went to check the family. We may not agree with the methodology, but they were checking patterns. Now we are Christians and we say, you don't need to check anything. Boy meets girl, or we went to school together and blah, blah, blah. Then people go ahead and marry, and in no time, because even, and the last thing I'm going to talk about is that I think the greatest missing link in a lot of relationships today is friendship. We prioritize friendship when we were younger. In fact, we call it platonic relationships, right? But now, it's knocking from day one. So, if it's knocking from day one, where you don't even know where to draw the line, people are not building deep relationships anymore. I mean, people call me all the time, Praise, do you know good people? Do you have good people? And blah, blah, blah. So I asked them, you want to get married? Do you have at least 11 eligible singles who share your values? And they don't have it. So I'm like, you don't? So how are you going to get married? Right? So people must learn to build proper relationship, because friendship is the crucible in which great relationships are forged. Friends don't pretend to themselves. And I always tell people, the best person to marry is actually your friend. If you get it right, the person is properly brought up, you get it right, then marriage is not going to be likely to be difficult, because that person is going to stay with you through thick and thin. Or else, if you just go and pick someone else, hey, when the money is not flowing the way it used to flow, they'll take off, because the purpose for getting married is wrong.
Okay, Praise, I could keep talking to you because, we just could keep going on. As the people of Ajawa say, the Omoluabi is ọ̀rọ̀ tó bá ṣe lódò ni, tí ó bá ṣàkàn, yóò ṣe já dandan. It means that there will always be something to talk about when it comes to the family dynamic, right? But look, I have to let you go and save some for the tank. Yeah. Now I'm going to now do finally what I was supposed to do first. I guess I was just so happy to have you here that I didn't do it. So I'd usually say to my guests that if I had to introduce you formally, I'd probably say that, as I said in the beginning, you're a family life scientist, you're a relationship coach, and you solve the naughty problems. That's a KNOTTY. Yes. You solve the naughty problems in relationships, families, and I probably figure that your core specialty is helping to raise great kids, or making sure that kids are raised healthy. Would that be a correct characterization?
Well, my core is family systems design.
Okay.
So which will be whether you want to design a marital system, you want to design a parenting system, that will be my core. And what I'm focused on right now is raising a new generation of family life professionals. So I run certification programs across different countries right now.
Awesome. Praise, thank you for doing this
my brother.
with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll see you again soon.
Yes, sir.